My father signed me up to the British Army when I was 15 years old, which is quite remarkable when I think of it these days. We were primarily trained to become leaders within the British Army, and I did that for almost 6 years, 3 years as a junior leader, and then 3 years in the regular army, and as part of the Royal Military Police, believe it or not. And within the Royal Military Police, I actually reached the stratospheric rank of corporal. Nevertheless, I was seconded to the Special Investigation Branch of the military police when I was about 20. That secondment really firmed up my desire to leave the army. I thought, really, this isn't for me. So I wandered off into the world and actually travelled overland through Africa. I met some Australians who advised me to go to Australia because that was the land of plenty, and well, I took their advice, and I ended up working in the Pilbara in Western Australia for 2 years, which allowed me to do more travelling, and I actually drove right around Australia in a VW Beetle. Then I went to Southeast Asia, and I met my future wife in East Timor. She was from Sydney and travelling on the old overland route to Britain. We went to Japan, and when we got to Japan, we taught English there, and I taught English in Japan for quite a while, and I might add I had no English teacher qualifications at all. I just sort of rocked up, and the fact that I spoke English was the welcome that was put out for me, and with that money I used it as a springboard to go to Central and South America, and we travelled together, my wife and I. We travelled all the way from Tijuana on the border of the United States and Mexico, and we went all through every country right down to Tierra del Fuego at the tip of South America. And we actually taught English in Brazil as well, so we ended up in Rio de Janeiro and taught English there as well. And unfortunately, the number of hours that we could get in teaching English in Brazil wasn't particularly great. And we were earning enough money to survive, but we weren't earning enough to save, so we decided to come back to Australia. I saw an ad in the paper for mature students at UNSW, so I abandoned my career as a library assistant and went into full-time study, and I studied at UNSW for 3 years. So I ended up doing a BA in Asian history, and then subsequently a diploma in librarianship. Fortunately, I got a job at UNSW, and I worked as a serials librarian there for 6 years in the Social Sciences and Humanities Library, and then subsequently I got a job working at the State Library of New South Wales as their first collection development librarian, and it was all analogue in those days, so I had to do the statistical analysis of all of that, which I did. I sort of taught myself along the way. Remarkably, one day the then state librarian Alison Crook called me into her office, and she said to me, "Would you like to be the Mitchell librarian?" So that's how I became Mitchell librarian, which is quite remarkable, really. I didn't have an interview or anything, and anyway, I really enjoyed my time as Mitchell librarian, and it gave me a good grounding and understanding in Australian history. And also the people that I was in charge of were wonderful people who had a fantastic knowledge of Australia and the highways and byways of life in Australia, which as a Pommy I didn't know anything about, so I was very reliant on the senior staff, people such as Paul Brunton, who's quite famous in the Australian Society of Archivists, and Elizabeth Ellis in particular. They gave me lots of support during my time as Mitchell Librarian. I got the job as the Associate Director of this State Records, what was then State Records, now State Archives. So that's how I ended up working as a sort of archivist. I don't actually call myself an archivist because I never had any training as such, being a librarian. I moved over to the archives, and unexpectedly David decided to retire early, and he left the archives, which obviously opened a spot as a vacancy for the director of the State Records, and I applied for that job, and lo and behold, miracle of miracles, I actually got that job as well. So I sort of embarked on a new career in archives, and I did the job for 4 years, which really isn't very long, but by that time I'd reached my late 50s, and I retired actually when I was 62. And what sort of almost forced me to retire was the fact that I developed prostate cancer. And you think, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well enjoy the last few months or years of my life. And so I decided to retire, and I retired in September 2012. And at that point, I'd been looking around for other volunteer jobs, and Louise Trott, the Sydney Diocesan Archivist, she invited me to be a volunteer for her, and I said yes, and I actually worked for her for 10 years as a volunteer archivist. I mean, I've always had a sort of an understanding of archives and the importance of archives in society, and I've always admired what archivists do, and even with fixing all these bytes, I ensure that I take a photograph of each one as I do them, and I record some metadata about the byte. So I've even got a record of all this sort of minutiae of fixing bytes, which I suppose would warm the heart of many archivists. Yeah, I suppose it's purely accidental, really, that I did become involved in archives, and my early career as a soldier, a junior leader, I mean, we were taught how to lead, and I've never found it difficult to put myself into a leadership role. It's almost a natural part of my life to have done that. Remarkably, I only joined the Australian Society of Archivists in August 2001, so I'm a relative newcomer in comparison to some of these other characters. Within a short time of joining, I did actually become the convener of the New South Wales branch, and so I had those initial contact with people who actually were archivists. And the thing that I enjoyed about that, not only being an office holder but also being a member of the New South Wales branch, was actually the friendship and camaraderie of the whole group, and I'm sure that sort of stretches way beyond New South Wales, and it's something which is just part and parcel of being an archivist. And I think the thing that really sticks out in my mind is that the fact that you're an archivist, say, in a large organisation like the State Archives, or a small organisation like the Sydney Diocesan Archive, each archivist is facing the same challenges on a day-to-day basis. And I think that creates a level of cooperation and camaraderie based on the fact that we're all partners in adversity. In some ways that's bad, but in other ways it's very good, because it coalesces the mindset of the group. And no matter whether you are from a large or a small archive, you're all moving in the same direction, reading from the same page. So I think that's a particular highlight for me, is the relationships that I've had. It really comes back to the basics, and I hate to be negative once again, but I don't think the level of education that's been provided by the universities in particular, for the full gamut of skills that they require in the archival profession. It's all very well concentrating on IT and artificial intelligence, and maybe artificial intelligence can write retention and disposal authorities, which I'm sure people are using it to do. But I think there needs to be a sort of a broader level of education which encompasses the analogue world as well as the digital world. The society has a role to play there, and perhaps the role of the society may be to take a step back and to go back to the early days of the society, when it did actually provide accreditation for work which was to actually become an archivist. I recall the Library Association of Australia used to have examinations to become a librarian, and I don't think that the universities have entirely provided the template which fits the needs of the Australian Society of Archivists to produce multi-skilled archivists, really. We're sort of getting uni-skilled archivists who are maybe skilled at creating databases and using technology to the fullest extent, but the problem is that there's a whole vast array of analogue data in archives which still has to be dealt with. And that was what we found, what I found at the Sydney Diocesan Archives, that, the majority of their archives are sort of paper. So we still need the skills to deal with paper. The trouble with archives and libraries is that they have difficulty in being recognised as important. And I think it's only by continually banging on about the same topics over and over again that we can make a difference. And occasionally archives does penetrate the consciousness of society. And I think particularly at the moment, archives are really a sort of a bulwark of democracy, and to sort of go down that track to sort of reinforce that message is an important thing which the Australian Society of Archivists should say. And I think it's also important to note that although you said it once, there's millions of people out there who haven't heard the message. So I think it's important to regularly repeat these messages. You may think it's boring and that you've already said it, and people should have already taken notice of it. So I think the society should not be diffident about repeating the same message over and over again, because it's only through that repetition that the message will eventually get through. So that would be my small bit of advice, to try and angle things to fit in with the news cycle so that you can become more relevant. I suppose the recognition that I got when I did actually retire, and that Don Harwin, the then president of the Library Council of New South Wales, arranged for my achievements to be read into the New South Wales Hansard, and I think that's an unusual honour for a public servant to get. So I was quite proud of that moment. I was also proud of the moment that I got the Centenary of Federation Medal for my services to the Australian Society in the early 2000s. So that was another highlight in my career. And I suppose the third highlight would be being appointed to the position of Mitchell Librarian without an interview. It's highly unusual, really.